about this video real quick. Legendary Drop just dropped a video saying Black Myth Wukong forced out of Game of the Year. If this is actually true that Black Myth Wukong is not nominated for Game of the Year, the whole video game award show is going to implode on itself. If this is true, if this is actually true, dude, that's it, dude. No one will take the fucking Game Awards show serious by now, to be honest. If it gets replaced by Dragon Age, we're done, dude.
Now, ever so often, there's a game that comes out that meets...
I'll be curious what he's going to be talking about specifically. If this is actually true, or if he backs it up or anything like that, we're going to find out right now.
And exceeds the expectations of the players. It blows our minds. It's so good, but for some odd reason, it doesn't meet the same expectations for games media. Our interests aren't aligned. Our perspectives are not necessarily the same, and there's conflict in that. And I think that Black Myth Wukong is one of those games. And don't get me wrong, the game reviewed very well. It got over an 80 on most review sites. But with that said, up until the game's release, and then even after the game's release, it was under a constant barrage of negative criticism that had nothing to do with the game whatsoever. And
Yeah,
in
of
that,
course.
the game never really got a fair shake. At least not in my eyes.
It's funny because somebody tweeted out or so, like, there's no girls in this game or so, and I'm like, yes there is. What the fuck are you talking about? And you know what surprised me the most or so on top of that too as well? Like I saw someone clip a VOD or so from Connor or so, C-Dog VA or so. And it kind of surprised me, it kind of baffled me or so that he is not playing, that he's not going to play Black Myth Wukong because he thinks the game is boring. I don't know, dude. That is the most wildest kind of take I've ever seen in my entire life, you know? Like, I was like, really? A person who, like, associates with monkey is not going to play a monkey game because he thinks it's boring. And I feel like something must have influenced him in order for him not to play this game, you know? There's no way, to be honest. Yeah, but you can't call the game boring when it's not boring. Like, it doesn't make any sense because he just literally said it's boring. I'm like, okay, so what's boring about it, you know? He didn't go in depth. He didn't really say anything about it. And this was during the time or so of the controversy of Black Myth Wukong. Apparently these journalists were saying that, like, oh, there's sexism and like sexual harassment or so in the company or so, or like somebody was like saying sexual quotes or so, you know? And it's like, you know, and it's kind of like, huh, okay. What do you mean? There are no girls in Wukong. They trap. Cypress knows. Oh yeah, no, the game is definitely. No, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't believe that statement. What C-Dog says, bro. He plays like different other games that are just can be equally more boring than Black Myth Wukong than ever. To be honest, you know. That's if it's a subjective statement, well then his subjective statement on certain games or so is pretty bad, and that's pretty much it. So
now, 2024 has been an absolutely insane year for games. There are so many great games to play, and if you're one of those people that are out there that are like, gaming is dying, let me be the first to tell you, you need to play more games, or just not the same ones over and over again. The list, once I get into some of the game of the
I just say FPS. The FPS genre is pretty much fucking dead, you know, because there's not really that many exciting FPS games. Fragpunk is pretty enjoyable, but unfortunately, the Twitch people are going in there already. You know?
Your contenders, it's gonna blow your mind because I honestly forgot how many games
he played Elden Ring. This guy probably played like Dark Souls games and stuff like that. Like he plays like, let me see. If I remember correctly, right? He played Elden Ring. Fucking C-Dog played Elden Ring. Yeah, he played Elden Ring. He played Elden Ring. Did he play any of the Dark Souls? Let me see. No, he has not. He played Sekiro. So I think we can call an agreed Ranton's COD list is objectively correct. Shut the fuck up. That fucking list is dog doo-doo. If I sit or Blade, I wanted to be game of the year. I wanted for it for so long, and Monkey Game was cool to hell. It beated Elden Ring and Dark Souls. Yeah, but the Dark Souls that came out, I'm not the Dark Souls, but the Elden Ring was a DLC or so it's not really a full fledged game. So Elden Ring won its game of the year, of course. You know, well, it's like spotlight or so, right? Because it came out last year, right? At the end of the day, so.
Even came out this year. This isn't about the award. It's about the recognition that these studios deserve, the reward they deserve beyond just making money. It's making sure that it's known why these games are great so that other publishers and studios can see, hey, this is what it is. This is how we make a game that the players love. And it's not, again, just...
You know, the funny thing about it, too, as well, his friend, what is it? Connor's friend, what is it? His name is, Gaunt, right? His name is Gaunt or whatever his name is. I forgot his name or so. He started playing Black Myth Wukong, and he fucking enjoys the shit out of it, you know?
Not the money. But already I'm starting to see games media want to preemptively push back about Black Myth Wukong being in the Game of the Year category, and we're going to talk about that. Before that, today's sponsor.
It better be in the
massive free-to-play
if Black Myth Wukong does not show up in Game of the Year nominee or so, that's it, dude. That's it, dude. The whole entire fucking gaming award is going to implode on itself, you know.
Scale multiplayer game where you can
for
fight
the worst game of the year. That would be
pretty
interesting, but they're not going to do
aircraft,
it,
helicopters, and naval vessels.
You know, if I ever get popular in the future, I would probably do a Game of the Year nominee and all this other shit. To be honest, I would probably do my own award show.
20th century to present. The game is available on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox.
I would definitely do it.
100%. Thanks to this update, you iconic American. In addition, community. So
I'd probably have like the worst game of the year or the most disappointing game of the year or something like that. You know, I would do something like that.
And
to
Silver
be honest,
Lions.
You know?
It's wild to think that it's not even over yet, with more releases right around the corner. This is about the time of year that Game of the Year candidates are being discussed and debated, and this year we have a lot of difficult choices to make. Dragon's Dogma 2, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Helldivers 2, Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, Prince of Persia The Lost Crown, Persona 3 Reloaded, Metaphor ReFantazio,
no, it's just
and Silent
it's
Hill
just
2
the journalist,
Remake are among the highest scoring games that we've had from reviewers this year. That's 8 games.
It's just Western journalists that just really are just people are just kind of like insufferable people, to be honest.
Is when only 6 games can be qualified as candidates.
That's why we don't take gaming journalists
seriously. Of games that were scored just under that.
I didn't post
titles like Stellar Blade, Black Myth Wukong, Tech.
It's because you didn't separate. It's because you didn't separate level dot it's, you know, that you put it together. That's why.
In 8, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, Unicorn Overlord, Space Marine 2, and more. 2024 has been packed with games, but only a few titles.
Dude, Metaphor has been so much fucking fun. I fucking love Metaphor so far.
Are deserving of being crowned King of the Year, and for many players, that game is Black Myth Wukong.
Metaphor has to. I don't know what Metaphor is going to be competing against, but it has to win at least. It's going to be really tough or something because I really do love the OST for Metaphor so far, so I'm hoping that it wins best like game soundtrack or something like that, you know?
James Throtton of The Gamer penned an article titled, "If Black Myth Wukong isn't nominated for Game of the Year, fans are going to be insufferable."
Oh yeah.
James writes, Black Myth Wukong is a very good action game, taking the Souls-like formula and stretching it into a boss rush format. Its popularity even surpasses that of its inspirations, garnering millions of players in mere days. It's a genuine contender for the Game Awards, but with how stacked 2024 is shaping up to be, competition is fierce.
What other game can compete Black Myth Wukong for Game of the Year? I'm trying to think off the top of my head, what big release game came out this year so that's blew everyone's mind off? Space Marines is not a Game of the Year contender. They said it themselves that they were not trying to make a Game of the Year contender. They were trying to make a B tier game. That's what they. Helldivers don't really see it being as Game of the Year. Elden Ring DLC is not considered as Game of the Year. It's not a game. It's a DLC. So the developers of Space Marines completely said that they were not trying to go for Game of the Year nominee. So. I can't really think of any other game besides Black Myth Wukong, to be honest. What about Nintendo? Does anybody know any like big Nintendo games that came out this year by any chance? Does anyone play Nintendo games here? I don't know. I don't play any Nintendo games, so. Wasn't Zelda Tears of the Kingdom or so came out? Silent Hill 2? Yeah, I can see Silent Hill 2 definitely going for Game of the Year nominee, probably. I would be very surprised if Stellar Blade shows up. Because Stellar Blade was also a really good game too as well. That's your opinion, but you want to know something, Natsuko? We're looking at the basis of the game itself as a whole, so. It's a really well-polished game. It's a AAA budget game. Told a really good story, to be honest. Had really good cutscenes. The action was great. The music was great. The sound effect was great. The art style was really great, too, as well. So, you have to look at it at a different perspective, Natsuko. There has been a lot more terrible games this year. I will be honest with you. There has been a lot more terrible games this year. I can't really think like a super big heavy hitter, you know, because like Elden Ring, what is it? Elden Ring came out last year, right? If I remember correctly. I could be wrong or so. Elden Ring was the one that swept like the entire year or so. And then I know Alan Wake came out last year too as well. But I definitely think Black Myth Wukong has to be nominated for Game of the Year.
Polygon recently updated its Game of the Year frontrunner list, while the Golden Joystick Awards announced its 6 nominees for this year's PC.
Yeah, but mostly every single game that's been like almost every single game that has been nominated for, you know, Game of the Year has always been AAA, so. But is it really its own game though? Like, is it its own game? That's the question I ask.
And console Game of the Year categories.
DLC,
Black Myth Wukong is nowhere to be seen outside of smaller categories, and so TikTok right now is a deluge of angry gamers declaring that games media is corrupt and that it's all a part of some wider conspiracy. The game was not rigged from the start, it's just been a very, very competitive year. This week alone, we've had Silent Hill 2 Remake, Metaphor ReFantazio, and Dragon Ball.
I can definitely see Metaphor being Dragon Ball. Yeah, maybe. I can definitely see Dragon Ball being, you know, nominated for Game of the Year. That would be pretty interesting to see Dragon Ball as Game of the Year. Metaphor, I can definitely see him being at Game of the Year, of course. Metaphor, Black Myth Wukong, Astrobot. You know, Astrobot was actually pretty well done. I don't really believe Final Fantasy VII Rebirth should be on there, but like a Dragon and Infinite Wealth, maybe, yeah, and perhaps, but I don't think it made such a giant big splash, to be honest. Helldivers 2, I don't think it should go on definitely for Game of the Year. Dragon's Dogma 2, I can definitely see Dragon's Dogma 2 definitely being on the list for Game of the Year. Yeah, so it would be interesting to see a Dragon Ball game nominated for Game of the Year. That would be very interesting to see that, to be
Sparking
honest.
Zero, 3 critically acclaimed hits that are all vying for the spotlight with equal fervor. Earlier this year, we saw the launch of Astro.
Definitely, I don't see Final Fantasy VII personally. Astrobot, I definitely do see. Astrobot was really good, so Astrobot I can definitely see being Game of the Year. Metaphor, definitely. So it would be Black Myth, Metaphor, Astrobot, Dragon's Dogma, and Silent Hill. I think that's pretty much. I think those 5 would probably be good decision makings or so for Game of the Year, to be honest.
Robot, Final Fantasy VII
Hey, King.
Rebirth, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, Tekken 8, Helldivers 2, and Dragon's Dogma. That's not to mention the stellar year it's been for indies. Black Myth Wukong, while good, we scored it 4 stars, just doesn't measure up.
Rebirth would probably win if it has been released on PC. Would Final Fantasy Rebirth win Game of the Year compared to Metaphor, compared to Silent Hill, and compared to Black Myth Wukong? Would it stand toe-to-toe to those 3 games? Work is tiring today? Well, make sure you get some good rest, okay? Make sure you get some resting or so. I don't think so. I don't think it would stand toe-to-toe against Silent Hill, Metaphor, and Black Myth Wukong. I don't think it would. It'd be close, but I don't think it would probably beat at least 2 out of the 3, but I don't think so. Not all 3 of them, though.
Up to the greats. Hell, it's not even the best Souls-like this year, as that award goes to Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. For those that have used Wukong as fuel in a culture war since before it was even released, its absence on these lists is an attack. It's a ploy by games media for reasons, even though it has an open critic aggregate of 82. There's one big argument cropping up across Reddit and slowly replacing all the goth girls on my For You page as to why it deserves to be nominated. It sold well. James, I will speak for those that you are arguing against. Black Myth Wukong doesn't deserve to be nominated because of its sales. It deserves to be nominated because it is the
Did it came out this year? I don't really remember, to be honest.
first ever release from a studio, an inexperienced studio, that made a stunningly gorgeous game with great combat, a compelling story, beautiful music, incredibly detailed and culturally accurate environments.
Yeah, I also do agree that remakes shouldn't be on the list either. DLCs and remakes shouldn't be on the list, but apparently that's how they do their shit, apparently. So it would be what? Astrobot, Black Myth Wukong, Metaphor, what is it? I would definitely nominate Stellar Blade for Game of the Year, to be honest. I feel like between like 5 or 4 games or so.
Some of the most unique boss encounters I've seen in a game like this, and themes that we don't often see in games. It was original, fresh, and most importantly, fun. And while many of the games that were mentioned in this article are incredible games, they are just copies of previous titles or even remakes. The industry should be celebrating and rewarding studios that work this hard, take a risk, and deliver something altogether new. And we're not even mentioning how the game sold at a fair price. I am so exhausted by this. Do you want to know why players think there's some grand conspiracy? Do you want to know why they think there's some media bias? Well, you're not doing yourself any service when you try to minimize the game at every given turn. You called it a Souls-like. It's not even a Souls-like. I actually did the same thing in a video too, so I'm actually not going to take points away from you for that. But I don't understand where this idea that this game somehow became something that the culture war LARPers had latched onto even before its release, because to my recollection, the only thing that I can remember is games media were the ones that were pushing these allegations from IGN against game science through different articles. And then also at the exact same time, there were a ton of people pining over tweets that were completely mistranslated. If anything, it was games media that was dragging this game into the culture war, not the other way around. It's just not true. The entire time before this game's release, and this is the reason why I say the game didn't get a fair shake, is that every single time this game was brought up, it was always with a qualifier. Black Myth Wukong is a fantastic action game, but there was this report from IGN that was also based on some mistranslations, but
Yeah, the person who mistranslated or so the Chinese text or so, for that literally was such a dumb person, to be honest.
we don't really care about that much. But anyway, they said some things, or they do some things we don't necessarily agree with. Black Myth Wukong, we're giving an 8 out of 10, but just to let you know, we saw some tweets that were also mistranslated, and we didn't really like exactly what they said or the things that this company
It's so
stands
stupid,
for.
in my personal opinion.
It was always like that. The game never got a fair chance, at least in the media light. And that's not the same for every other game.
Why do you think no one really cares about game journalists' opinion now these days? We don't take game journalists seriously at this point now, you know, just because the dumb act foolery that they do now recently.
That was out there. All the rest of the games never had
Especially
any of this kind of
IGN.
stuff. And the worst part
Especially
is again,
IGN.
all of these things
For God's sakes, they literally fucking gave Pokemon fucking Sapphire, you know, a low rating because there was too much fucking water. Come on, man. Like, are you fucking for real?
were alleged, never
Too
even
much
proven,
water.
yet they
Let me
were
remind you,
touted as
too much
fact.
water,
They were included
okay?
in game reviews, game review videos, and reviews. You don't think that's too far? What do you think is the purpose of that when you put that stuff into an article other than to minimize the game and hopefully steer players away from buying it? That's the point. You want to understand and know why players think there's some grand conspiracy? Well,
Wasn't there a specific like review or so where a critic who reviewed the game or so said there wasn't enough diversity in the game or so? Wasn't there like a specific reviewer who reviewed Black Myth Wukong, and then one of the things or so, one of the cons or so, what they said specifically was there was not enough diversity in the game? I thought, to be honest, that was a fucking joke in my personal opinion. I really, like, when I saw that specifically, I was like, no fucking way, dude. You actually can't be serious, to be honest.
it's not hard for them to jump to that conclusion when it's staring them 2 inches from their face. On the topic of the game's sales, the writer continues with, it's hardly a compelling defense, but sales figures have long been used as evidence that supposedly anti-woke games like Wukong are what your everyday gamer really wants.
Yeah, of course.
In reality, it was a success because the game was marketed.
Also, at the same time, I don't mind being their cozy games, and then like the games, you know, the games for gamers, you know, the guy dude bros kind of games, like fucking Space Marines, you know, fucking Black Myth Wukong, fucking Elden Ring, you know, fucking whatever other like space, you know, dude related kind of type of games, you know. I don't mind that at all. You know, I don't mind both of them sharing the same equal, you know, ecosystem together, you know. But the problem is like there's too much of one side and less of the other side. There's not a perfect balance between both of them, you know. There's too much, you know, there's a lot of wokeness in a lot of in the gaming industry, right? Which is very true, 'cause even though a lot of people say like, oh no, it's not, but I'm like, it's pretty much crystal clear that you can basically see it, right? There's just not enough, like, you know, I don't mind like more Space Marine games, you know. I don't mind more Black Myth Wukong games. I don't mind more fucking Elden Ring games or fucking Helldiver games, you know, or like kind of like related in that sort of nature, you know. And I don't mind like a cozy game or anything like that, you know. I don't mind any of these, or the wokeness type games. I don't mind it as long as there's like a fair balance, in my personal opinion. But unfortunately, you can't have that, unfortunately, you know. Like Dragon Age should have been on the side of the dude bro type of game, you know. It should have been that like that good RPG, very gritty, very dark, you know, type of, you know, make your own choices kind of type of game. But instead we have, well, whatever the fuck we have now. So, you know,
marketed to the enormous untapped Chinese demographic. It was only made worse when streamers were supposedly sent guidelines asking them not to mention feminist propaganda or politics. Black Myth Wukong became the poster child for the most toxic, vocal gamers on the internet, and everything since its launch has only worked to further that image. Wukong was a monumental hit, there's no denying that. Within days, it skyrocketed to the 7th most played game on
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we don't like. I am gonna be playing Dragon Age. I'm gonna be playing Dragon Age today because someone donated the money or so for me to play fucking Dragon Age. I don't want to. I didn't even want to spend money on it, but we're gonna fucking play it. So
on Steam of all time, the peak concurrent player count of 2.4 million players, but numbers aren't everything.
Natsuko, they don't even have a fucking boobs, like a bigger boob slider and a booty slider. Come on, man. Natsuko, they don't have a big ass slider. Like, come on, how can I relate to it? God damn, dude. Now, even for a Souls-like crackhead like me, there's too many Souls-like coming out. It's like manga and anime making too many isekais. I'll be honest with you. Don't get me wrong. I don't mind the Souls-like stuff, but like sometimes even I said this before, there's just too many Souls-likes coming out, you know. I don't mind if there's like every Souls-like every so often, but man, sometimes there's just too many, you know.
Banana, the viral clicker game that generates Steam Marketplace items, has a higher 24-hour peak than Black Myth Wukong right now by over 100,000 players. Avengers: Infinity War and Spider-Man: No Way Home are among the highest grossing films of all time, but they didn't walk away with the pinnacle Oscar for good reason. Sales do not equal quality, but Black Myth Wukong has been weaponized in a culture war ever since it was announced, and it doing well has only been used as ammunition to argue that games media is out of touch with gamers.
It's so dumb that they're trying that Sweet Baby Inc. sent an email to, what is it, Game Science, I think is what they're called or so, to help them diversify the cast or so of their Chinese culture with their Chinese mythology and their, you know, just everything just Chinese related, and they wanted to diversify it more, which makes no sense whatsoever, to be honest. It's like basically telling, you know, it's like basically telling, like, you know, the let's say for a good example, right? Let's say about Africa, right? For an example, right? The African culture, the African mythology, and everything like that, right? They're like, oh, there's too many. There's not much diversity or so in your African, you know, Black myth, you know, let's say Black myth, you know, African mythology, you know, right? They'd be like, there's not enough diversity or so. So we need to send you an email or so for you to divert. We can help you diversify your cast or so, which makes no sense whatsoever, you know. It just literally makes no fucking sense.
Not being nominated for any Game of the Year awards, it's October, it's likely going to be in the mix for a lot of sites, and still could be up for many categories at the Game Awards, is just more fuel to prove that point. It hasn't upset fans because they think it's a good game deserving to be among the best, it has upset fans because they see its absence as an attack in their one-sided feud. As we edge nearer the big, celebratory, end-of-the-year closer that is the Game Awards, we are going to see this outrage spiral.
Oh, yeah.
If Black Myth Wukong doesn't get a nomination for the main award, it has a few competitors to shut out in Best Action, its fans will see that as a personal slight. We're witnessing it already, and I've seen my colleagues get attacked over the past year just for covering the game. If fans are this riled up by an award ceremony many self-proclaim they've never heard of, or a list...
It's so dumb to take the Game Awards serious, right? Like attacking people and everything about that just because a fucking game that you don't like got fucking nominated or so. I think, in my personal opinion, that is the most dumbest thing ever, you know. Honestly, I just can't fathom, to be honest.
To front runners that means very little, then I can't see being snubbed from the Game Awards going down well. Man, the lack of self-awareness when saying that the sales of the game were used as ammunition in a culture war, while you yourself are focusing purely on the sales of the game to minimize the entire discussion around the game. That's...
I'm not gonna lie, chat. The Spider sisters, they were pretty hot. I'm not gonna lie. They were pretty hot. So, hands down, they were pretty hot. So,
That's interesting. It's convenient to go after the outrage of those who can't voice their concerns properly because the writer is absolutely right. Sales does not mean a game should be Game of the Year. If sales were the leading factor, then Baldur's Gate 3 should have lost to Hogwarts Legacy, or Call of Duty should have won for 5 years straight since it was the best-selling game since 2017. There are a slew of other factors here that should be discussed, but the writer and other media pundits aren't taking the time to discuss that. They're just hand-waving the angry gamers and throwing it out into the bin with the rest of the culture war commentary. Now, my question is, why is it that on the topic of game sales, the Chinese player base is used to minimize the overall impact of the game's sales, success, and popularity? Again, to quote the writer, the game was a monumental hit. There's no denying that. Only to follow it up with, but it succeeded because there was an untapped Chinese market of players. Like, those players don't even count? Why aren't we having a discussion on why, censorship aside, Western games haven't been able to penetrate that market as effectively as Black Myth Wukong, especially when there are that many players that could make that much of an impact on a game's sales? Black Myth Wukong is just as deserving as any other title that could go up there for Game of the Year.
Of course.
That's not saying that those games aren't worthy either. They are. But the thing is that it just feels like the coverage around this game, the discussions around this game, have just felt off.
Well, apparently a lot of people do listen to game journalists for some apparent reason, even though my personal opinion, right? I think in my personal opinion, right? You should look at other people who are playing the game, look at videos, look at gameplay, make your own judgment if you want to try the game out. For me personally, like, I don't mind trying out like every new, like, if I can or so, right? Try every new game out every so often, right? Just try it out or so and see what I think about it. And if I don't like it, right, I just stop playing it, and that's pretty much it. That's frankly about it. Have there been any games have I stopped playing or so, like, immediately? I think Tears of the Kingdom, that's about it. I think personally it's pretty boring. Personally, I'm not really a huge fan of it. The one Zelda game that I played or so was back on the the SNES or so. Yeah, the SNES. I only played one Zelda game, and I actually enjoyed that Zelda game specifically. That was back when it was like, what, the 16-bit era or so on graphic styles or so. And that's about it. I think that's the only Zelda game that I enjoyed. Like any of the more modern or the more newer Zelda games, I've never played them besides like Tears of the Kingdom. And that's about it. So, yeah.
Purposefully dishonest in a lot of ways. Black Myth Wukong was incredibly popular. It was incredibly popular with the Chinese because it was the first game that really represented their culture and history in a way that could bridge the gap between nations.
Yeah.
Players around the world loved it. They connected with it. And because of that, it brought down cultural boundaries. We don't see that very often. It should be something that everybody should be cheering for and happy for. That is the power of this hobby. That is what it can accomplish at times, but we're losing sight of that. I think this all loops back to the fact that game science did not bend the knee in fealty to games media when they started
thank God
hurling accusations at them, baseless accusations at them, and demanded an answer. They said no comment. That has nothing to do with the game or anything else right now, and they didn't feel that it was in good faith, and they just ignored it entirely. And I think that games media as a whole took offense to that. They didn't like that too much.
Yeah.
They don't like it when their power and position is questioned, when their authority,
it's so stupid,
or what little they have left of it, is questioned. This should be a game that we should be celebrating because of the fact that it broke down cultural boundaries. Beyond that, it was a game that was absolutely gorgeous. It was coming from a studio that this is the first game that they were releasing.
To be honest. Even on the lower graphic settings for Black Myth Wukong, it still looked fucking great.
About relatively polished, fresh feeling combat, boss encounters that we've never even seen before, with attack stylings we haven't seen.
The bosses, like all the boss fights and the new mechanics and everything that they did or so was really nice. Actually, I actually quite enjoyed it or so. I actually enjoyed it way more than Liza P 100%,
In environments we've never been in, atmosphere that was absolutely fantastic. They went out and they scanned real life statues and architecture to try to make sure that the game had the most authentic rendition possible, and they delivered on it. The game was absolutely incredible. The stop motion animations, the anime cutscenes, and a bunch of different style of art. It was great. It was such a good.
I thought the the cutscenes or so that you get at the very end of the chapter, so like the animated stuff, every single one was so different. I actually really enjoyed every single one of them, to be honest.
Game. But all of that isn't being discussed. Instead, it's all locked behind social politics.
Yeah.
Black Myth Wukong was nothing short of a revelation for me. The game was a breath of fresh air in a world that is drowning in microtransactions and endless live service models. Much like Baldur's Gate 3 and Elden Ring, it was just a straightforward video game.
Yeah, because Baldur's Gate was a really good game as well. Like for me personally, I'm not gonna play it, right? Because I'm too stupid to play that kind of game. But I can respect it of how good it was, you know. So it definitely really did deserve game of, you know, did it win game of the year? I think if I remember, I know it's been like a while or so, but if it didn't or so, it probably should have won or so.
And that focused on delivering a great experience without the baggage of modern gaming trends. Selling it at a fair price really made it shine as a prime example of what players have been craving, a complete, immersive experience that doesn't feel like it's constantly trying to upsell you.
Yep.
Like I said before, honestly, it's just a damn good video game. I'm not a professional reviewer, but playing Black Myth Wukong was an awe-inspiring journey for me that I can't stop thinking about. From the moment that I started, I was blown away by its visuals, its gameplay, its music. Every single boss fight felt exhilarating, and
man, the music was so enjoyable in this game. I'm gonna be honest with you. I always remember that one part when you want to heal and the clone monkey just takes your heal and drinks some like what? Oh, I never had that. I never had that happen to me ever.
I found myself savoring every single moment rather than trying to just rush and finish the game. It's a game that didn't just entertain, it resonated on a deeper level, reminding me why I fell in love with video games in the first place. Now, with that said, the other games that are out there are genuine contenders. I don't want this video to come off like Black Myth Wukong should be the only game of the year and no other game deserves it.
There should definitely be some competition for game of the year, but I think definitely no hands down out of the entire year or so, right? Definitely the two juggernauts that should be probably competing or so should definitely be Metaphor and Black Myth Wukong, you know. Astrobot is probably like close second or so, but definitely the two titans or so. Those are really good though. But I think out of overall, I think between, I haven't really gone through Metaphor that much because I just barely finished like the first act or so, the first boss or so. So haven't really gone through most of it, so I can't really say my own opinion about it. So we'll be seeing, we'll be checking it out. So
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was absolutely phenomenal. While I know that there's some people out there that think the game doesn't deserve a spot because it's a remake, it's not. It's a full-on reimagining. The combat, the storytelling, how events play out, the music, the atmosphere, all of it makes for a game that's deserving of the crown. Helldivers 2, despite its controversies, was for all intents and purposes the game to beat this year. It sold tens of millions of copies. It felt like a trip back to the old days of Halo 2 and Halo 3 post-launch, where friends are asking when you're going to get on, you're staying up way too late playing the game, and all you could do was think about what was going to happen in the game next. I just recently started playing Metaphor ReFantazio, and I'll be honest with you guys, it's likely this year's game of the year. It makes huge improvements in turn-based games. It has music that has no right being as good as it is.
Dude, I don't know who is going to be competing or so. True, Dustborn is a strong contender. Shut the fuck up. Fucking Dustborn, I swear to fucking God. I'm going to be honest with you. It has to also compete in, like, one of the best, at least, like, hopefully, I don't know if there's a best game soundtrack or so. Like, I'm hoping this is also in that specific category too as well. I don't know what other game also has good soundtrack besides Black Myth Wukong. Final Fantasy 7's OST would be pretty good in there. What other OST video game from this year? Stellar Blaze OST. Ooh, that'd be a really, really hard category or so to choose between all of those games, to be honest. And like all of their soundtracks are really good, but man, that'd be really tough.
The set pieces and art direction go from breathtaking to nightmare-inducing, and it has character writing and stories that show quality, care, and
I feel like that category for the OSTs, like good soundtrack or so for the OST game for the games or so, it's gonna be a really tough category if they have those games in there, to be honest. If they have all those games, OSTs in that specific, competition in that vote list or so, it's gonna be really hard to choose. Like, they're all really great, but I don't know who I would pick to be the top or so.
The authenticity that players have been complaining for years that game studios can't touch without ham-fisting those themes in. It is the perfect example of how to do topics like diversity and inclusivity the right way. I just want to emphasize that this isn't about one game deserving a title over another. Every title mentioned has its own merits and fan bases, and they're all worthy of recognition in their own right. Black Myth Wukong, however, stands out for its originality and its cultural significance, but also for how this game has been mishandled by the media.
Oh, yeah.
It's a testament to how hard game science worked on their game and the fresh perspective that they bring. After all, that's what games should be about, creating experiences that are resonating and bringing us together, not just the ones that fit into a narrow definition of success that is made up by a handful of writers. You know, I'm starting to realize that access journalism doesn't work in both ways. You know, because they want to make sure that they're trying to stay in line, that they're doing their best to be able to hold on to their contacts, their insider information, get their keys and their codes, and make sure that they can hold on to their jobs and their relevance. But on the other end, when it comes to some of these smaller studios and publishers, they desperately need the help of games media to be able to be noticed, to get in the front of the eyes of players in the first place. Get their trailers out there, get articles written and things like that, get them in the algorithms and whatnot. And I think that some of these journalists that are out there view that as an opportunity for them to throw their weight around. That's where they get to be the bully this time. They get to push everybody else around and tell them the way that it's going to be. And I think that Black Myth Wukong stood in opposition to that, and they didn't like it too much. And it might not be all of them. I'm not going to say it's every single one of them. There's some damn good journalists that are still out there. I know you guys are probably shaking your heads. No, there's no way. Believe me, they exist. I have a few of them that are out there that are some of my favorites. But with that said, I think that's the case here for Black Myth Wukong. You know, it's not about sales and it's not about scores. It's about fairness and image. And I just do not think under any circumstances that Black Myth Wukong was painted in the same colors as some of the other games.
Because didn't Hogwarts came out a certain year, but it got robbed or so because of the stupid controversy? It didn't even get nominated or so for any award, right? If I remember correctly, right? I don't want the same thing to happen with fucking Black Myth Wukong, because I think that's fucking BS as fuck, because of what happened with Hogwarts Legacy. I thought it was like completely dumb or so.
So we've seen this year, even games that had controversy. Pal World, I mean, that game got absolutely shredded by games media. They hated that game, even though the players liked it. But even still then, I don't feel like the game got dogged on this hard. Going back, Helldivers 2, they went through their entire controversy. Games media didn't even want to touch it. They didn't even want to talk about it. They just brought it up slightly and then walked away from it. Just let the gamers be mad. And I think the reason why is because they just didn't see it from our perspective. They didn't care to see it from our perspective. Which then brings me around to this idea that when it comes to a game like Black Myth Wukong, or maybe even like Space Marine 2, probably less so on that one, I think that there are some writers, some journalists that are out there that see that these games are being used in a culture war, that they are diametrically opposed to whatever the side of that culture war is, and they do not want to give them a win under any circumstances. And that does affect their review at the end of the day. They don't want to hand that over to them. They know that they're going to use it as ammunition against them, and they're never going to hear the end of it. And as a result, well, points get docked, the image of the game gets smeared, and this is the result that you get. I don't know if that's going to be the end result of all of this, but it looks like it is. One thing the reviewer, the writer, did get right, there's a lot of games to be vying for a spot as Game of the Year this year. A lot of games deserve it. We've had some awesome games released, and there's still more that are right around the corner. Stalker 2 is, I think, next month.
Yeah.
We just had...
Yeah, I really hate how they milked the Stellar Blade situation, too, just because the girl was hot and everything, and be like, oh, this is not correct. Girls cannot look like that. They can't look that hot or so. They can't have that body. That body is inconsequential or so. It's impossible for a girl to have that type of body type or so. And it's just kind of like, I'm like, damn, man. Maybe if you just stop stuffing your face or so, maybe you can probably have a body like that, you know? I'm just saying.
Call of Duty Black Ops 6 just came out recently. That game got reviewed really well. It did really well. The players seem to really like it, which is crazy for a Call of Duty game, but I mean, stranger things have happened. So who knows? Maybe there's something else that's sleeping in the wings that we don't know that's going to come out and
I'm still waiting for that shit to come out on PC, to be honest.
get a bunch of 10s and 9s. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to share the video with your friends. Make sure to like the video if you enjoyed it. Comment down below what game you think is going to be Game of the Year, or what game you want to be Game of the Year. And yeah, outside of that, my friends, stay cool, stay right.
Yeah. Like, if Black Myth Wukong does not get nominated for Game of the Year or so, dude, there is going to be riot that's going to be happening, you know. There's going to be rioting, there's going to be a lot of discussions and a lot of issues, to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you, there is going to be a lot of issues specifically talking about it. Yeah, like I said, if it does not get nominated for Game of the Year, it's you know, it's gonna be crazy in my personal opinion. But yeah, that's about it, you know. Yeah, I think in my personal opinion, remakes and DLC should not be nominated for Game of the Year, because it should be new games of that specific year and games in it on itself, you know. Remakes and DLC should not be nominated in my personal opinion. Yeah, I can definitely see Astrobot. I can definitely see Astrobot being nominated for Game of the Year, because I think that was actually a really well received game as well. So it's like it's a good game. So I saw some gameplay. I saw like a bit of a let's play on it too as well. So but yeah, anyways, yeah, that's the end of the video. You know, you guys can comment, like, subscribe, do all that fancy jazzy stuff, and yeah. Like I said specifically, it's gonna be a very interesting time of the year, to be honest. Oh yeah, I saw someone playing Romancing Saga 2 or so. I haven't seen the entire thing or so, but yeah. We are actually going to see if Black Myth Wukong is gonna get nominated or not. But anyways, yeah, that's the end of the video, and peace.